I credit this for Little Viking Horse, Chapter 3, copyright permission from Catherine Howler Backs. A few days later, but as Philippi was leading Fleeka in from the field, Jones' cat and trailer car and trailer, came rattling into the yard. "Oh, we're early," Philippi said. "Oh, you're early," Philippi said. "We're just a trace of annoyance in her voice." I thought Fleeka was sure Jones didn't notice it. "I was just going to get him ready for you and make sure he was calm and settled." "No need," barked Jones. "I've got a busy meeting to get to. Just load him and I will be on my way." "Okay," said Philippi, frowning. Fleeka felt jumpy. He didn't like it when humans were snappy, even if they weren't snapping at him. It was just a start in his new life when Jones saying yes, impatiently. As Philippi tried to give him the last advice on selling a new horse, so led Fleeka straight to the trailer, muddy coat and all, and gave him a quick scratch behind the ear. "Be good," she whispered, before Fleeka had a chance to call out to his field mates to ramp was closed. He heard Ruggina's high-pitched foil whining calling to him, and Fleeka nickling inexorably as the trailer bounced and rattled out through the gateway. He had it quickly sidestep to keep balanced as they turned into the road. He craned his neck around to look behind and could just see as Philippi standing in the middle of the lane, watching them go. Now, as he was leaving on his way, without his mom heard without Galadriel starting to panic and tugged at the rope, and he tried to the front of the trailer. He stomped his foot on the floor and whined as loud as he could. I'm here, where are you?" "Goodbye, little one," came Galadriel whining over from the field. "Galadriel, help me," Fleeka called back. His neck stretched rigid, nose pointed forward to get maximum volume. Galadriel, but this time there was no reply. His heart pounded in his chest. His ears flicked all in the direction as he tried to make sense of the cacophony of noise surrounding him. He stomped again, his hoofs thumping on the echoey floor. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, the trailer stopped dead. Then Fleeka stomped against the breast bar, shocked. Fleeka planted all 4 feet firmly and braced himself, waiting for the next violent lunge of the floor. He could just hear Jones' voice muffling through the wall and trailer. "Cut it out," he groaned. Then he pulled out just as Fleeka was settling, used to the movement. The trailer slowed sharply as Fleeka was jolted forward again. His eyes widened in surprise. He was just repositioning his feet when the trailer lurched over to one side and Fleeka was slamming against the side wall, and then a moment later he was thrown the other way. He spread his legs apart and leaned back onto the rear of to try to stay on his feet. All was well for a while, then bang, thrown forward again. His whole body tensed with anticipation. His muscles trembled with the effect. Sweat and trickled down his chest and between his front legs, making streaks into the mud on his coat. Before he dripped into the floor, he traveled in a stable wheel before he had been smooth and calm. Now, just as Jones had forgotten he was there, all there, being bounced around from the car. Eventually, the rope became smoother and the trailer stopped lurching around. Fleeka's muscles relaxed and he swayed gently from one side as they slid down the motorway. He could hear the road engines as they passed the lorries in front of them. His eyes drooped as he drove, letting the noise of the engines and the rattles of the trailer drift away. Finally, the motion stopped altogether, and the engine was quiet. Fleeka heard muffled voices outside the trailer, and as he pawed the ground with one hoof. "Get me out of here," he thought. His ears flickered rapidly as he heard the sound of bolts being drawn back. Then the front ramp lowered. "Well, you're in a bit of a state, said Jones, until he was leading him from the trailer. "Let's get you hosed down." All Fleeka really wanted to do was have a good troll and get some grass inside him. He needed food and urgently, but he stood patiently as Jones washed him and inspected his legs. "Well, no damage there. We're going to be doing a lot of traveling when you get best and get to this," he said, and gave Fleeka a hearty slap on the neck. Fleeka jerked his head up in alarm, but Jones was grinning at him in one of those wrinkly faces as he seemed that Jones thought was a sign of affection. Fleeka would have much preferred a nice scratch on the shoulder or behind the sweaty ears like Fleeka used to do. But Jones led Fleeka from the yard and past a stone building with an iron rolling fence with two huge brown brown black dogs bouncing up and down at the railing, barking and waggling their tails fiercely. Fleeka eyed them wearily as stretched his nose down to get the proper sniff at them. "Shut it!" Jones snapped at the dogs. Instantly their tails dropped as they shrunk back to their other kennel. Whining, Jones led Fleeka into a huge field of lots of separating paddocks already occupied by other horses. Fleeka lifted his nose and whined, "Hello, it's me." The horses' head shifted from their grazing, ears shriveling in Fleeka's direction. The noise of some horses vibrated as they noticed a greeting. The two of them frowned, followed Fleeka along with a little of the line of the fence, and their heads and ears trembled forward in curiosity. "I'm Jinx," said in a deeply gray horse. "Are you my replacement?" "I'm here to train for competition," said Fleeka. Jinx seemed satisfied with that answer and maybe even a bit relieved. "This is Luna and Jinx," said Jinx, waving his nose at the sandy-colored mare next to him. "She's a new forest pony and my friend. She's my friend." "Do you mind?" snorted Linda, putting her ears back as Jinx got too close. "I will be friends with whoever I choose and just make sure that Jinx got the message." She gave him a good head nip on the back of his legs. Jinx skipped sideways out of reach before he could bite him a second time. Fleeka was excited to meet the new horses, but when he reached out to sniff noses with Jinx and Luna, Jones had held his rope tight on and he couldn't reach him. "I prepared a nice paddock of your own when you can say hello to the lot without any of you silly buggers getting kicked," Jones said, pulling Fleeka's head away from his new friends. "Can't be having my new competition horse injured before we start now, can we?" Two really big horses watched as Fleeka was turned into a paddock between them and Jinx and Luna. He wondered if they were friendly, but the top of his mind was that long for roll, and as soon as Jones skipped off the halter, he dropped down to the ground. Now there, you silly idiot," but Jones warned as already too late, as Fleeka let caught of the electric fence and zap. He scrambled to his feet and tried to run from whatever it was that had just bitten him, but the tape caught around his back legs, and as he ran, the poles was ripped from the earth and chased after him, bouncing and leaping and pulling on the tape as they snagged into the ground and tore free again. Fleeka put his head down and ran faster, but now the posts were not all there. All that was chasing him. In hot pursuit were the big horses. The first was a huge black cub and a white blaze on his face, and following him an equal red mare whose name steamed out behind like dancing flames. Round and round the field he ran with the two big horses. Behind him, bucking in excitement, every so often Fleeka came in sight of Jones, flapping his arms and waving a halter around. He thought maybe he can just hear Jones shouting, "Whoa, whoa," but was too busy running for his life to be sure. Now I credit this to Little Viking Horse, and thank you to Catherine Heller Bax. This is for Chapter 3.